Once we've perfected our camera technique, our lighting, editing, grading and our slow-mo, the next step on the path to cinematic greatness is shooting with an anamorphic lens. We love that letterbox format, long pictures, but the problem with anamorphic, of course, is it costs proper money. Things that we love about anamorphic are that panoramic format. We love the little blue streaks of light that we get across the frame when there's a light shining in the lens. We love the flare in general, a little bit of vignetting. We love that wide angle aspect, being able to get close to the subject without distorting their face, and also the enhanced sense of a shallow depth of field. And some cinematographers go to great lengths to achieve those effects. With bolt-on adapters and even those oval irises that you can put in the back of your lens with a bit of fishing line to catch the light. You'd think though, wouldn't you, with cameras like the GH5 and GH5S with their built-in anamorphic modes and a whole load of monitors that would de-squeeze your footage for any type of camera, that there would be more affordable lenses, anamorphic lenses that you could put on your camera. But there aren't. What's around is very expensive and just out of the price range of most people using regular kit. When Panasonic introduced 6K anamorphic on the GH5, I borrowed a Cooke 32mm anamorphic eye 2x lens to use on the camera to test that out. The lens was fabulous to use. It gave even me some incredible footage, and I cried when I had to send it back. But that lens cost 25 times the price of the camera I was using it on. Now, I'm always telling people to spend money on the glass rather than the camera, but that ratio is just a little bit crazy. And that's where this guy comes in. This is the Sirui 35mm 1.8 anamorphic, and it costs about half the price of this Lumix GH5. This is Siri's second anamorphic lens, as the 50mm was launched earlier this year. These lenses are designed for APS-C and Super 35mm sensors and the Micro Four Thirds system. They both give you a 1.33 times squeeze, so some people will say they aren't proper anamorphic. But when you record using a 16:9 area of your sensor, you're still going to get that 2.35 to 1 letterbox format, which is good enough for most of us. When you're shooting on the GH5 and GH5S with anamorphic mode on and the whole 4:3 sensor area recording your image, your footage is recorded in 6K and de-squeezes to a high resolution 16:9 format. Or you can shoot in the regular 16:9 video modes to achieve the magic 2.35 to 1 shape. Shooting with the anamorphic mode on in the GH5 will give you an 18.7 million pixel image that de-squeezes to 16:9. But using the camera's 2.35 to 1 guidelines to compose while shooting, you can crop to 2.35 to 1 in post and still retain 10 million pixels instead of the 8 million you'd get with regular 4K video. So either way, you're going to get nice detailed results. Obviously, when you're shooting with a smaller sensor, these lenses are going to feel a little bit longer. So this 35mm, when you put it onto APS-C with a 1.5 times factor, it's going to act more like a 52. But then you've got the 1.33 times extra width, which makes it behave or seem like a 39 or a 40mm. This 50mm, when you put that on APS-C, it acts like a 56. So you've got 40 and 56. So this new lens is a little bit wider. Not massively, but it's a little bit wider. On Micro Four Thirds, the 35mm will act like a 70. And then with the extra width, it comes back to 52. So it's much more like a standard lens, just a very slightly long version of a standard lens. I hope that in the future will get us a wider lens from Sirui. It would be great to have a wide angle, a standard and a slightly long telephoto set so that when we change lenses, we know that we've got a consistent look. Like the 50mm anamorphic, this 35mm places the anamorphic lens group at the front of the construction where it will have more pronounced effect, helping to generate that flare, those blue lines, some vignetting and the oval shaped out of focus highlights. You can tell the anamorphic cylinder is positioned at the front end of the construction, partly just by looking at the shape of the barrel, but also by looking through the lens. When you look through the front element, the round iris looks oval, and when you look through the rear element, the iris is round. So you can tell that the iris is behind the anamorphic group. The 35mm is about the same size and shape as the 50mm, so switching them on rigs should be straightforward, and they share a 67mm filter thread. With this model, Sirui has included a set of rubber gear rings for your follow focus rigs. But even without a rig, these rings make changing apertures and focus so much easier. Like the 50mm, I found this 35mm is a lot sharper than most other anamorphic lenses I've shot with, and it can be used easily at the widest aperture and still retain loads of detail. It gets better as you stop down, of course, but the point for me is that you don't have to stop down to use it. So it's great in low light and for exaggerated shallow depth of field when you want to draw attention to something. Here's some shots taken at night with the lens used wide open. You can see those oval out of focus highlights that everyone seems to want. And you can see that as the lens is a 1.3 times anamorphic, the effect is a little more subtle than you get with a 1.8 or 2 times lens. The flare is just as obvious as it would be with a 2 times anamorphic though, and point light sources shining directly towards the front element trigger those long thin lines that stretch across the frame. There's a nice general flare too that shows across shadow areas and which can create a sense of low contrast even in high contrast scenes. The flare, blue streaks and oval bokeh appear in equal measure whether your final image is 16:9 or 2.35:1, as the front element does the same job whatever the recording area of the sensor. The close focus is decent too. With this 35mm you can focus at 85 centimeters or 33 inches. That's not massively close obviously compared to a normal spherical lens, but for an anamorphic that's pretty good. Also, when you're close you don't get that distorted perspective that you would get with normal lenses. At the same time, on Micro Four Thirds we're getting the depth of field of a 75mm but with the angle of view of a 50, which helps the subject stand out nicely from the background whatever aperture you're using. In tests I've found you don't get the same sort of vignetting that you'll get with adapters and with older anamorphic lenses, which I think is a good thing because you can add vignetting afterwards if you want to, and you're not stuck with it whether you want it or not. This 35mm comes in a Micro Four Thirds mount and a choice of adapters. This one is for the Nikon Z system, but Sirui offers mounts for Sony E and Canon EF-M. There's a few things that make this 35mm and actually the 50mm stand out from other anamorphic lenses that are available on the market. Anamorphic lenses are supposed to be big. This is only a little bit bigger than this 35-100 Xperio from Lumix. Anamorphic lenses are supposed to be heavy. This isn't. It's heavier than this lens, but it's not really all that heavy. Anamorphic lens is supposed to have a slow maximum aperture. This has got an f1.8 aperture. Anamorphic lens is supposed to be expensive too, and actually this lens is cheaper than this lens. All of these things are important, of course, but the key thing is that price. Sirui is making the joy of high quality anamorphic photography accessible to everyone. Well, everyone with the right lens mount. And they've broken that relationship between anamorphic lenses and a big pile of money. And that is a very good thing.
I think you've got to press the button or something.